Why are flights so expensive right now? Number 1. Large jets are still parked. Airlines are understandably cautious. They just had a shock to their system and a pandemic that was the biggest in 100 years. Many 747s and A380s were therefore parked indefinitely or retired. And while it makes sense to bring these planes back now that demand is clearly on the up, it can take weeks, even months, to get these huge birds back into service. Pilots and crews need to be retrained, and the planes themselves need to undergo standard safety checks after being idle for so long. Unfortunately, it's not just like flicking a switch. Airlines are intentionally delaying the reintroduction of these jets as to when they're absolutely sure that they will fill up. And who can blame them? With more fuel-efficient counterparts such as the Airbus A350 and the Boeing 787 Dreamliner available, airlines will be looking to cut their losses for as long as possible with these fuel-efficient aircraft. Demand right now is also more geared towards leisure travelers, visiting friends and family who they haven't seen for many years. Many of these larger jets are geared towards business travelers and are premium heavy, making them less lucrative until the business traveler market returns fully. With fewer planes in the sky, there are fewer seats to meet the recovery in demand, which has pushed up airfares. Now, if you're enjoying this video, why not consider subscribing? I'd really appreciate it. Okay, now on to the second reason why flights are so expensive right now. Number 2, skyrocketing fuel prices. Now, oil prices were already bad before Putin decided to invade Ukraine and make it even worse. At around $120 per barrel at the time this video was made, jet fuel can represent as high as 38% of an airline's costs. This is up 11% from pre-pandemic levels. For some budget airlines, the fuel cost can be almost 50% of the total cost. This was already flagged by Qantas CEO Alan Joyce in March, when he warned that an oil price increase to $120 per barrel will see a ticket price increase of about 7%. Airlines have therefore increased their fuel surcharges to cope with the increased cost of fuel, which has driven up overall airfares. Okay, number 3, strong pent-up demand and deep pockets. This is a more broader economic phenomenon than specific to airline tickets, but a lot of the inflationary crisis at the moment has been caused indirectly by the pandemic. For months, even years, people were given government handouts and little or nowhere to spend their money because, well, they couldn't go out anywhere. As a result, people were able to save more throughout this time, and with large savings and huge pent-up demand for travel, it was inevitable that prices would increase substantially. The so-called revenge traveler are typically people who have been affected greatly by lockdowns and are likely to be more spontaneous and emotional about traveling. This has made it easier for airlines to charge higher prices because they know their consumers are willing to pay a little bit more. Higher ticket costs don't seem to be dissuading people. Okay, on to reason number 4, lack of staff. Now, it's no secret that many jobs were lost during the pandemic, and the airline industry was no exception. If anything, the airline industry suffered the most. Hundreds of thousands of pilots, flight attendants, ground handlers, and other aviation workers lost their jobs. Now with the borders opened, the industry is struggling to rehire these same positions to allow for the same level of service as pre-pandemic levels. But it's not as simple as calling back the people that left and hiring them again. If only it was that simple. Many workers who were let go have found other, less volatile careers and aren't willing to come back to a cyclical industry like the airline industry. This has been felt all over the world. In the US, smaller regional airlines can't fly at full capacity because the bigger carriers have hired the pilots that are available. Hundreds of flights have been cancelled across Europe, scuppering holiday plans and leading to long delays and scenes of passengers sleeping at airports. Meanwhile, in Australia, Qantas has made a fresh appeal to head office employees to help with the airline's overworked ground handling staff. Airlines are having to pay over the odds to recruit and retain staff, which is increasing costs significantly. Okay, number 5, making up for lost time and profit. Even at the best of times, the aviation industry runs on paper-thin margins and is hugely capital intensive, with aircraft going for hundreds of millions of dollars a pop. COVID made an already challenging industry an impossible one, with some reports stating that airlines lost more than $200 billion in the 3 years to 2022. That's the equivalent of the GDP of Greece. In combination to the first 4 reasons, the high prices represent some way to clawing back some of these losses. A lot of the large aircraft in an airline's fleet have their purchases justified by the amount of cash they can generate over their lifetimes, usually 20 or so years. With 3 years of virtually no cash generation, there's now less time to make up the overall cost of these expensive birds. Airlines can't keep charging high prices forever, and they won't ever completely offset the losses from the pandemic, but this will at least help limit the damage. What do you think? What are the reasons that you think are causing the sharp rise in airfares? Leave a like and comment below. As always, thanks for watching, and until next time, keep flying high.